Yeah, please. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Corporation of Township of Minden Hills regular council meeting for Thursday, November 13th, 2025. In review of today's agenda, we have two public meetings, one a zoning bylaw amendment and two for fees and charges. There is a closed session meeting that will take place near the end of the regular meeting. Madam Clerk, please proceed with a roll call.
Counselor Sisson,
Present.
Counselor Saney,
Present.
Counselor McKelvey,
Present.
Counselor Johannesson,
Present.
Counselor Ingram,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Shell,
Present.
Mayor Carter.
Present. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Minden Hills is located on Treaty 20 Michisagi territory and in the traditional territory of the Michisagi and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. I call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution for the approval of the agenda.
Moved by Counselor McKelvey, seconded by Counselor Sisson. Be it resolved that the November 13th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we move directly to public meetings. Ms. Doherty, if you could join us. Yes, please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council adjourn its regular meeting at 9:02 a.m. to proceed into public meetings regarding the following. Report 2577, planning application for zoning bylaw amendment, PL ZBA 2025083 Beamish. Report 2538, administration, proposed changes to the township's comprehensive fees and charges bylaw.
I call this meeting, sorry, all in favor? Jumping ahead.
Yeah.
I call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. Today there is one public meeting held by council under Section 34 of the Planning Act, being for application PLZBA 2025083. The public meeting is an opportunity to present to council and the public the details and background to the proposed amendment and to receive comments from the public and agencies before a council decision is made. If a person would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions before the bylaw is passed, the person is not entitled to appeal the decision. This public meeting is declared open and is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment for Part Lot 8, Concession 10 in the geographic township of Minden, having municipal address 1540 12 Mile Lake Road. Would the planning department please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the subject application was submitted by Carly Beamish on behalf of herself and Barbara Beamish as property owners. The purpose of the application is to implement site-specific zoning to allow for the redevelopment of the lot. The property is currently developed with a non-complying 1.5-story single detached dwelling with an attached deck, and there's also a shed located to the rear, as well as a boathouse and dock located in the shoreline area of the property. The property owners are seeking to demolish the existing dwelling and attached deck and construct a new 2-story dwelling inclusive of a sunroom and maintaining the same setback to the high water mark as the existing dwelling, which does not meet the minimum requirements of the zoning bylaw. The ground floor area of the dwelling is proposed to increase 40% in size. The new dwelling would also have an expanded lateral width using the area of the existing side deck with a portion extending past where that deck currently ends. The waterfront deck is not to be replaced, and only small patio areas are proposed in front of the 3 entrances to the waterfront side of the dwelling. Additionally, there would be a new 555 square foot attached garage proposed at the rear of the dwelling. Under the policies of the provincial planning statement, the subject property is part of the rural area and is more specifically defined as being rural lands. Permitted uses include residential and resource-based recreational uses, which are considered locally appropriate. Development within rural areas must also have regard for policies of Chapter 4, which is wise use and management of resources, and more specifically as it relates to natural heritage. Specific to the subject property, policies direct that development should be restricted near sensitive surface water features, which would include both an existing drainage feature, which is identified as a creek on the property, and 12-Mile Lake. An environmental assessment of the creek was completed by Cambium in support of the application. That assessment identified that the creek itself is not sensitive according to the provincial planning statement. However, it does drain into the lake, and so disturbance to the soil around the creek might impact water quality and fish habitat within 12-Mile Lake. Impacts as assessed by Cambium were limited to the construction phase, which could be effectively mitigated through sediment and erosion control measures. The subject property is designated waterfront on Schedule A of the township's official plan. Policy directs that the shoreline frontage should be retained in a natural state and where possible or necessary restored to ensure protection of habitat, prevent erosion, maintain shoreline character, and minimize visual impacts of development. 12-Mile Lake is also identified as an at-capacity lake and is considered a sensitive surface water feature. The official plan policy recognizes existing development rights for lots on at-capacity lakes. Policies which limit development tend to aim at intensified uses that are not already permitted. Although the new dwelling would have an increased footprint, existing water yard setbacks to the dwelling, as previously mentioned, would be maintained. Additionally, the permanent removal of the attached waterfront deck will serve to improve the natural form within the shoreline area. The subject property is zoned shoreline residential in the township zoning bylaw. Permitted uses again include detached dwellings, single detached dwellings, which is the established use. Minimal site alteration will be required as the proposed development will be located within the existing developed area of the property, and the majority of the increased ground floor area will also be outside of the required 23-meter setback. The development would continue to meet the required side yard setbacks, and vegetation along lot lines is not expected to be disturbed during construction. Overall, there will be an improvement to the setbacks because there will be the permanent removal of the waterfront deck. This provides opportunities for enhanced natural vegetation. And to preserve those opportunities, the site-specific zoning will place a maximum on the amount of additional hardscaping permitted within the water yard. The visual impacts of the proposed lateral width are expected to be minimal as the property is already developed in those areas and will also be limited to a one-story roof line. Save and except for the existing reduced setback to the hydrologic feature on the property, the garage meets or exceeds all other provisions of the zoning bylaw. Although the creek itself, again, was not identified as significant habitat, those potential impacts from construction near the creek might impact habitat within the lake. And so again, those impacts can be limited through mitigation with sediment erosion and control, which can form part of the building permit. Notice of today's meeting was circulated to neighboring property owners and agencies on October 20th, and a signed notice was posted on the property. No written comments were received on the application thus far.
Does the applicant have a presentation or wish to make any comments? All right. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to provide their comments. Are there any individuals attending virtually?
Through the chair, no, there are no attendees.
Yeah, are there any individuals attending in person who wish to comment? Seeing none. Are there any questions from members of council? Seeing none. Oops. Oh. Councillor McKelvey.
Just a question on the shipping containers.
Mhm.
It indicates that they are allowed in our zoning bylaw during construction. I knew travel trailers were, I didn't realize shipping containers.
Through Mr. Mayor, so based on the current provisions in the bylaw, a shipping container would be permitted for something like storage during construction only.
So do we have a way of ensuring that they're removed after that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, so that would be a requirement through the building permit prior to them getting occupancy, as discussed with our chief building official. I will also say that the property owners in this case had actually originally applied for a building permit, so they were expecting to be able to move forward. So they put the shipping containers there initially, anticipating a sooner construction date. And through review, it was determined it didn't comply. So that's why they're already there, because they had planned on construction earlier. So we are aware of them as is the CBO, and they'll be removed after construction.
All right, are there any other questions from council? Councillor Saini?
Thank you. Great to see development happening in Minden. So thank you and supporting what our recommendations are from our planner. My question though is, it says that the Cambion is limiting the construction phase, which can be effectively mitigated through sediment erosion and control measures. And because of past phone calls on other sites that I've gotten, I'm just curious how we translate that to the actual people on site doing that work to make sure that those measures are put in place. Do we have anything formal that we do that, or is that just?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, again, this somewhat falls on our CBO, and in discussions with him, these can be notes on the permit as being requirements for proceeding with the development. And then when inspectors are going out to the site, they would be checking for those things as well. And that's fairly standard if there's requirements in order to ensure compliance with zoning. Our CBO is kind enough to put those on permits where he's within his purview, his jurisdiction, and the inspectors will watch for those things.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Ingram? Mike?
Just call me Ivan. We asked for a report on this back in 23, in July 23 on sea containers, and I really think we need to address that moving forward. We asked planning for a report back in 23, and there's so many of them around town, we need to deal with it. Not specific to this, but all around town. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? As a result of these proceedings, does the planning department have any recommendations or comments that you wish to bring to the attention of council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the staff report recommends that council receive report 25-77 planning as information, and that bylaw 25-109 being a bylaw to approve a zoning bylaw amendment for the land subject to PLZBA 2025-083 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
Okay, if there are no further questions, this completes the public meeting process. Anyone wishing to obtain notice of the decision may do so by making a written submission requesting such to the township's clerk. I now declare this public meeting closed at 9:12 a.m. All right, it's proposed fees and charges. I call this meeting to order at 9:13 a.m. This public meeting is held to receive public input regarding proposed changes to the township's fees and charges bylaw regarding schedules B, administration and finance, C, fire, D, cultural center programs and facilities, E, roads department fees, F, planning department fees, G, cemetery, H, community services programs and facilities, I, environmental water and sewer and landfill, and J, community services advertising. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Through the chair, good morning, and members of council. Before council and the public today is a staff report proposed to adjustments to the current comprehensive fees and charges bylaw. The intended implementation of changes is set for January 1st, 2026. The changes have been considered in the 2026 draft budget. Staff have provided 2 weeks notice of changes in the local newspaper and on the township website. And should there be any additional changes outside of the proposed changes by staff, the clerk's department will provide additional notice requesting the public submit comments before the next meeting when we bring the bylaw back. Happy to answer any questions about the proposed fees, and if needed, we will actually pull the directors to the table pertaining to each schedule. My suggestion would be to like start with the first schedule and work our way through the chair, if that's amenable.
Yeah, I think so. We start off with administration and finance, which is Schedule B. Any comments or questions? Counselor McKelvey?
I have some suggestions for the tax registration process. The previous bylaw set a $2,500 upfront charge. The process for tax registration drags on for over a year. There's different steps involved. And I would like to suggest a breakdown of the different steps in the process with different fees. So what I would suggest is tax registration, the file is sent for processing. We utilize a company called Real Tax. I would suggest $500 at that stage. The registration of the tax arrears certificate, I'm suggesting $500. First notice, under the legislation, you have to send out a notice. The first notice is legislated for timeframes. I'm suggesting $200. Final notice, again legislated, $200. Cancellation of a tax arrears certificate, $200. Preparation of an extension agreement in the bylaw, if that happens, $500. And the actual tax sale itself is very labor intensive, and I would suggest $1,000 at that point. Now, because last year's fees and charges set up a $2,500 charge right off the get-go, which I don't feel was fair. But I certainly want to make sure that those people that have already had their files started don't get these fees on top of that again. So we need something, some sort of wording in the bylaw that these only apply for files going forward. But that's what I would like to suggest.
Go ahead.
So related to Councillor McKelvey's suggestions, first of all, I want to thank Councillor McKelvey for providing the information in advance that allowed our finance team to do a review and to have discussion. So thank you. My understanding from the finance team, and you can nod or shake your heads, is you've had full discussion, you've reviewed, and actually can very much support the recommendation from Councillor McKelvey. And we would concur that if there are charges on files that have already gone through the process, these fees would not apply.
Okay. Any other comments on this schedule? Seeing none, do you want to approve at each schedule? Okay. All right. All right, so Schedule C is fire. Any comments? Councillor McKelvey.
The only question I have is it talks about fire inspections payable before inspection commenced for licensing purposes only, which I see we have a different rate, but shouldn't all of our fees be paid in advance? Because like to me, if we're doing a fire inspection for other items, not necessarily for short-term rentals, but they should have to pay that in advance of us going to actually do the work.
Through the chair, I wouldn't see an issue with that. We don't charge for every inspection, like some inspections that I do are fire code inspections that are unannounced or not necessarily planned in advance. So we don't charge for those, but certainly licensing inspections could be paid for in advance, yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on Schedule C? Sorry. Counselor Ingram? Okay. All right, we move to D, Cultural Center Programs and Facilities. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, we will move to E, which are Roads Department fees. We obviously have a lot of different types of entrance permits. Counselor McKelvey?
Just wanting to make sure I'm on the same one here. So entrance permits, it's being changed to application deposit, but entrance permits is being crossed out. So I'm just trying to figure out what's happening here.
Through the chair, there are just some other types of applications that have similar inspections, such as use of right of ways and other things where we may be coming out and there could be potential damage to our property. So we just want to put the $500 deposit, which of course will be refunded if there's no issues on some of the other applications. So it's just a bit of a way for us to just ensure that we don't have any issues when we do our final inspections on some of these other applications that could be troublesome.
Thank you.
Any other questions on Schedule E? Moving right along to Schedule F, Planning Department fees. Number of changes there. Or any questions or comments? Sorry, did you have your hand up? Counselor McKelvey?
I like that we are changing the pre-consultation fee. I'm trying to find it, but where we're going to charge so much for the comments. Oh, here it is. $650 for one lot creation, 50% of the application fee for each additional, because we were charging $650. If somebody came in and wanted to propose 4, we charge $650 for each one of those. So I like this. The only thing I have for a question is if somebody comes in and makes pre-consultation for, I'm just going to use numbers. Okay. So for 4 lots. So we would charge them $650 plus 50% on the other 3. But if we determine that we're only going to support 3 lots, I'm just questioning, because that has happened where we've had somebody make an application, they've had to pay $650 for all 4. And then staff couldn't support that, so they had to get 3. Yeah, does that make sense? I'm just
Yeah.
questioning, what's the number based on the application or based on what we end up approving or recommending to county or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the fees are on the basis of what they apply for. Submitting for pre-consultation unfortunately does not always mean a positive outcome, but the work is still completed. So where we still have to review, even if we are not able to support it, they are paying that fee. The only time where we have, which has happened on occasion, the only time where we have not charged them that fee or we have refunded that fee to them is where they have on their own accord withdrawn like another lot, which has happened from time to time. But otherwise, if they've asked us to review 4 lots, then even if we can't support 4 lots, they would pay the consultation fee for all 4.
Which I think sounds like a fair way of approaching it. Anything else on Schedule F? Okay, moving right along to G, which is cemetery. Any-
Yeah, sorry. Through the chair, that's my apologies. We just had a quick housekeeping change. There was a word spelt wrong, so we're just going to fix that. I meant to remove that item.
Okay,
Thank you.
so no comments on the spelling. All right, so we go to H, which is community services, programs and facilities. Any comments, questions on that? Counselor McKelvey.
So our clerk indicated that these were all going to be effective January 1st, 2026. I'm just questioning if the ice rentals are going to be effective then, because we're changing the rates, I believe. And, you know, minor hockey or the skating club, they've already done their registrations. Well, they don't really, they have to follow the fees and charges. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to all of a sudden hit them with a mid-year increase.
So through the chair, we're actually not, we didn't change any of the rates. It was just taking out the changes that were made effective June 1st, 2025. So minor hockey and figure skating, that was in their current contract. So there's no changes to their current contracts. It comes to the summer ice. When they start booking in February, they'll be charged the summer ice increase rate.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Are there
Is
any
it-
other questions? Counselor McKelvey? Go ahead.
So it says non-primetime ice minor group rates is going up, I believe, to 87.55. I just want to make sure that that isn't going to take effect until September.
Through the chair, that rate change was effective September 1st, 2025. So this September that
I realize that.
passed.
Are we changing this for January 1st, 2026 or September 1st, 2026?
Through the chair, the rate is staying at the 87.55.
I'm not reading this right then, I guess.
So when we brought through the chair, when we brought the fees and charges last year, we had a two-step change of where they were becoming effective. So that rate became effective September 1st, 2025. So there was no changes to the minor hockey contracts.
Okay, so then if I understand this, where it says $85 is crossed out to go with 87.55, that's already happened.
Correct.
Okay. I have another,
Go ahead.
okay. Summer ice. I'm concerned whether this increase is enough. The hydro costs for the arena in June was $8,294.75. The hydro charges for the arena in July were $29,821.24. So that's an increase of over $21,000 for 1 month. I don't even think we had summer ice until later on, but I'm just concerned whether, and I recognize that we'll never charge enough to cover our costs. I get that. I just don't want to put us further in the hole.
Counselor Sisson?
I have a hard time with this summer ice. We've been asking for reports for 2 years now and never got one back about what the exact costs are. There's no way that's enough money for summer ice, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will go back through all the records because I do believe as part of the budget process, there was some reporting on summer ice. So I will double check that first of all. Secondly, all the hydro costs for that building, certainly the ice plant is a significant portion of it, but that's not the entire portion of hydro for that building. We have a gymnasium, we have a walking track, we have other amenities that go on in that building. So we can review these rates. But we have a flagship building there that we had reported back to council that sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years to build up program that will be sustainable. I think it is the thing that makes Minden Hills unique is to have summer ice in this region. We're one of the only facilities that has it. Thank you.
Councillor McKelvey?
Just a point of clarification, Dysart has summarized as well, so, but I mean, I can move on to my next question if you want.
Go ahead.
I really like the birthday party rental proposals. I think this is a great idea. I have concerns with the bouncy castle being rented. I'm trying to find where that is. But I'm pretty sure it's in here somewhere. The bouncy castle was a donation by the Minden Rotary Club. I struggle with us taking that generous donation and renting it out. Well, something doesn't sit well with me on that. Oh, yeah. I think it's something to just enhance the birthday party rentals, you know. Like, again, I really like the birthday party rental proposal. I think that's great. But I'm not I can't support renting out the bouncy castle that was donated so generously by the Rotary Club.
So through the chair, in discussion with the Rotary Club of the donation of the bouncy castle, they knew it would be being used for recreation programming and that we would probably have a fee for service. There is some upkeep to the bouncy castle, so if council wants to waive for the bouncy castle rental, we do need to take a deposit should there get a hole for patching and upkeep of to keep it in place.
Any other comments? Councillor McKelvey?
I can support a deposit for damage, but I do not support the rental of the bouncy castle. So I guess we need to just find out if there's.
Well, I assume part of it was going towards setup and takedown of the of this, but you know, I'm not a hill to die on, but the you know, it's up to council to decide. I know I probably won't be using it much, but
You won't have to give a deposit then.
Deputy Mayor Stout.
I would agree with what Councillor McKelvey is saying, but if staff have spoken to the Rotary who made the donation and they're comfortable with how the department would like to rent it, use it, then I'm okay with that. Personally.
Okay, well, let us move on. Any other questions on this?
Okay, so
Schedule?
that's one opinion on one side and another opinion on the other side. and we
Well,
need
we're
four
getting
each
back
side.
to this at the end. Go ahead.
I would support the staff recommendations here, and they've already worked it out with other partners in our community. So I would support that along with what Lisa Shell has just commented as well. Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor McKelvey?
So later on in the schedule, there is a new charge for bleachers per event, $250, picnic tables up to 6 per event, $100. Garbage recycling up to 4 per event, $50. I am adamantly opposed to us charging for this stuff when you rent the fairgrounds, and we don't have many people rent the fairgrounds anymore and put on events, so I don't want to discourage them by adding the fact that they have to pay $50 for garbage cans, which is, oh gosh, just craziness. Or picnic tables or bleachers. I mean, that should all be part of the part you get at renting fairgrounds. And I mean, 90% of these rentals we end up paying for anyways through our other policy that I can't remember the number of, but okay, there you go, policy 91. So we're just going to have to increase that budget line if we put this in, but I just don't think it's right. We need to encourage the use of the fairgrounds and events and good stuff to happen here.
So
So through the chair, the bleachers, picnic tables, and additional garbages, that is not, we can make it clear, that's not for the fairgrounds. It's for events happening in the downtown core. So with one of our user groups, they were going for a grant, but because we didn't have a fee in our fees and charges, we couldn't assist them putting a price for us bringing down like the bleachers, the picnic tables, and the additional garbages, because we had nothing in our fees and charges. So when they were applying for the entertainment grant, they could only put it what the township had in the fees and charges, which was a minimal amount.
Deputy Mayor Shell?
That was my question, is if it's like then staff have to physically move the bleachers downtown, if they're off-site, then that's completely different than having them at the fairgrounds.
Councillor Ingram?
Through the chair. I totally disagree with this. I mean, there's not a lot. We have a committee right now for making Minden great again. And to charge people that are putting events on in town just makes it ridiculous to me. I mean, we're trying to encourage events. We have to do something as a municipality to support those events. So, I mean, that's not a big ask. What is it? 2 hours back and forth. I've done it myself. It's not a big deal. And I think we have to do that because otherwise people are just to say, no, we'll go to Halliburton, we'll go somewhere else and do it. We have to do our part to help these events get going and stay going. And I think that's why we have to avoid charging where we don't have. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McKelvey?
I understand what Amanda was saying about that application and we couldn't show much in-kind support, but I mean, a few words in that application would have shown that, you know, we provide this. I'm not willing to start putting it in our fees and charges that when the Rotary has their Rotary Fest on downtown, they have to pay to get more garbage cans or picnic tables or the bleachers. I can't do it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on Schedule H? Sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor
Just clarification. Does this not come under policy 91? And so if there was a need to increase the amount of money going into 91 because of the requests from the community, that would be different, but we already handle these costs through people applying to say, this is what my event is, this is how much we'll need. And then that's translated into an economic amount. And so that is then administered through the grant process under policy 91. If we don't have some kind of structure there, we can get all kinds of requests and we don't have any kind of way of guiding who is going to get what, you know, bleachers, when and how. And so I think policy 91 plays an important role here. If we want to increase that, that would be good, but it's at least something measurable. So that's my looking at it. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess there's the, you know, when we're talking about Rotary and other either charitable or nonprofit organizations, it's one thing, but then if you have commercial folks who are doing things, I mean, I can see the arguments on both sides here. I don't have a problem with removing these. Anything else on H? Okay, moving on to I, environmental water and sewer. I'm sorry? Go ahead.
Set up fee hourly room rentals may include tables, chairs, staging, $50. I just need to understand if that's on top of renting. So you go, you rent, you rent the full place. You pay $401.50, so are they going to pay another $50 to get the room actually set up with tables and chairs?
So through the chair, that setup fee is for the hourly room rentals. So the full days and nights, that will not have an additional $50 fee. It is if they have an hour rental, or let's say they have a 2-hour rental and they have 50 chairs and want the stage in that 2-hour rental, it's for our staff time to put into, but a full day rental that's included.
Okay, anything else on H? Moving on to I. Community services, sorry, environmental, water and sewer and landfill. Moving right along. Counselor McKelvey?
Water and sewer connection at existing service at property line is $250. And now we're adding a $100 min fee. Shouldn't we just put it up to $350?
If that's council's direction, no agreement on our end.
I guess the thing is are they two separate acts or would
The-
anybody ever get the sewer, water and sewer connection without having to pay the admin fee?
No, realistically, not really. So,
Fine.
yeah, there's no issue with just making it 350 and being done with it.
Okay,
Cha-ching.
and Counselor McKelvey?
The other thing, I really like the idea of reducing these fees for shingles, because we're using them for cover. The only thing I want to bring up, and it's not really a fee, but it talks about bagged household waste within a bag limit. And that's perhaps not up for discussion today, but I would like it to be up for discussion soon. I think we should be lowering the bag limit. When we had the bag tag cards, after the 1 year, I mean, we didn't even use a third of them, and we have 2 different households we pick up for. So I'm just questioning whether our bag limit isn't too high.
Okay, I don't understand.
We have a bag limit, 3, I think it's 3 per trip. So we got these little,
Yeah, no, we have the cards.
yes, we got the little cards. If you went to the landfill site, I would hope you never got 3 of them marked, because that's a lot of waste.
Is it a 3 per trip? I can't. Go ahead.
So through the chair, the waste bylaw does stipulate a 3-bag limit per week. With the new waste card that we brought forward, it was to try to enforce that bag limit, but it did provide some flexibility in that you had the equivalent to 3 bags per week for a 1-year period. So if you were to bring in 6 bags in 1 week, that was permitted, and that amount of the symbols on the card would be removed from the waste card. But once they used up their entire card, again, which is the equivalency of 3 bags per week, then they would have to pay for any additional bags.
So you would only pay this $3 fee if you have used 156.
Through the chair, that is correct. So if I'm understanding Councillor McKelvey's comment, we could look at reducing the number of bags that are on the card to equate to, for example, 2 bags of garbage permitted per week.
Yeah, but that's another time and place, right? So I don't really see why the $3, if you've used your 156. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm not questioning the $3 over the bag limit. I'm questioning the bag limit.
Yeah.
I would like to see it come back. I realize it's not on this schedule,
Yeah.
but I don't want to lose the opportunity for us in the future to discuss bag limits. So this
That's-
was my opportunity to put it out there. If 3 other people agree, then I'm pretty sure staff will come back with a report.
That's
If
fine.
it's just me ranting, they'll ignore it. So
I think it's something that was already in contemplation, so we'll get a report and we can
I
decide.
believe it was, but maybe it can be now.
I'm sorry, people are pointing. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mayor Carter, and through the chair. So staff have had some internal discussions and did plan to bring forward the waste bylaw with some changes for next year and look at the possibility of recommending a garbage bag reduction. And this would align with some new programs that we are hopeful will come forward.
Okay,
When do we send out the landfill cards?
So through the chair, that'll be looked at, doing it possibly different this year, but we'd like to get them out sooner, but they do take effect July 1st.
Thank you.
Councillor Ingram, did you have a question? I thought it's,
No, I
Right.
don't. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, any other questions on I? Deputy Mayor Shell.
Just a question about the cottage kits. It's been $5 forever. Are we still okay with that amount of money or? I mean, I don't even know how many we do now per year, but I mean, that was us, Ivan, we did that. But I can't, so it's been a long time, right?
It costs more to photocopy them, put them in.
That's what I'm wondering.
Staff wise.
I mean, that's just one little thing I thought of.
So through the chair, thank you for the comment. So you're right, they have been the same since I started here. So the cottage kit consists of a one-time waste disposal card. And then we do have a one-page short-term rental flyer that goes with it. Our staff are really great in that if someone is buying several cottage kits, that they will ask them if they just want one or a couple of the one-page flyer to accompany the cottage kit, and then they put it up at their short-term rental. So that way we're not wasting that paper if they're buying 50 kits, that they may not need 50 of the one-page handouts. So they do ask those questions for large purchases of them. The cottage kit equates to whatever our bag limit is. So right now, it would be, they can take in 3 bags of garbage. Anything in addition would have a cost. So if council would like, we can look at increasing that for sure.
I was just thinking more about the time through you, Mr. Mayor, just more about the time that it takes for staff to put them together and do the thing rather than even the bag limit necessarily. But if you're comfortable with it, I am. I just noticed it's been that price for as long as I can remember, and that's been a long time.
Yeah, I guess it's also to encourage that the garbage actually does get to the dump, right? And that's so I'm sure that Waste Management can look at that and make recommendations. Anything else on Schedule I? Sorry. Thank you. Thought it was okay. All right. All right, so Schedule I is done. Okay, we move on to Schedule J, Community Services Advertising. Okay. Any question on advertising? All right. Sorry. Sorry, people are pointing all directions. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. I was wondering if Chelsea had thought any more about signage for the landfill with the new transfer station going in. You know, we talked about doing advertising on fencing perhaps to bring some revenue in. Have you thought about that anymore?
Through the chair, no, just not at this time. Definitely once the new site is up and running, that's something that we can certainly look at.
Sure. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Councillor McKelvey?
I apologize, it's on one of the other schedules. And it's the advertising for the ice resurfacer. Sorry, I think it might be back on J. We have the signboard advertising, which is doing great. We have advertising on our new and improved ice resurfacer. I'm just wondering what the charge is for that.
Through the chair, it looks like, yeah, it has come off the schedule somehow. But we can add it back. I don't know where it went. I can pull the numbers if you give me a couple minutes here.
And I don't know, I don't even remember it on the last schedule actually, but I do know that Dysart put theirs out for bid because it's prime advertising, like you can't get much better advertising than the Olympia or Zamboni going around. They actually put theirs out to bid with a minimum price of $1,000, I believe it was, so it's just something to keep in mind that that's a prime advertising spot, but I would like to know what we charge and where it should be and
Yeah, it's being looked up right now. Oh, do you have it?
Through the chair. So I've just pulled up the previous bylaw. So the Olympia, it was $315 for an annual rate, and the setup fee was $420. Does that make sense? Candace?
Yes, King Prairie Park. Sorry, I have internet issues.
So 735 is what.
Correct.
well, that's just your first year.
That's
So
for
actually-
the annual, yeah.
So the rental is only $350, is that what
315, 315.
it gets worse? I don't see where it should be less than the board advertising and like, I really think it should be more. I don't know if we've set some kind of a deal up here with the present ones or. I mean, everybody's subject to us doing our fees over, that's for sure.
Sorry, you confirmed it was the
Yeah, through the
735.
chair, those were the rates when I came into the
Okay, so
position.
what's the suggestion? I'm assuming it's an annual fee. And I'm assuming that, you don't, just because you had it last year, you don't necessarily get it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so through the chair, if the person that is currently on their advertising and they have first opportunity to renew, it is something that we're looking at because there is a wait list for the Olympia.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think council's brought up a good area for us to review and maybe look at bringing back a report that provides some options for moving forward.
So we just approve it now, and if it gets reviewed, we change it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be my recommendation. I think what we're hearing from council is not only the cost, but just the whole process of how somebody would be approved and maybe for a term as opposed to first right of refusal on an annual renewal.
You could use that same formula for the landfill. As your boards for the landfill. Advertising, same thing.
Yeah.
Work good.
Could be an auction.
Yeah, for sure.
Councillor McKelvey?
Can we at least put some kind of an increase in here now, though? Because that just saves you coming back, re-advertising fees and charges, and then amending the bylaw.
When was it due? Yeah.
Through the chair, the next round of advertising, whether they potentially could be changed out, is August 1st, 2026.
So I think we should be able to get a report back before August. To make that change.
Well, I would like to propose we put at least $500 in here then for this round, and then
But there is no round until next August.
The current term is August 1st to July 31st.
So you can just make a change before it comes up for renewal. Anything else on J? Seeing none, I turn to the clerk and tell her to proceed. Councillor McKelvey?
just a question on the building fees. I realize they're not here and we have to advertise and blah, blah, blah. Is that proposed for soon?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we are reviewing at this point, and then as council's aware, we have to advertise for 21 days. Any changes to the building fees, so that review is underway.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we want to proceed through the public meeting and just adjourn, and then we'll go back into open and
Okay. So, members of the public now have the opportunity to provide their comments. We'll start with all the attendees participating electronically and then proceed with members of the public attending in person. Madam Clerk, are there any attendees participating electronically?
so through the chair, we do not have anyone joining
All
electronically.
right, so then we go to people who are in the room. No, nobody there wants to, fine. Okay, I'll have to welcome them and ask them to state their name and address. So, are there any members of the public? And skip through all this. Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, so the public meeting process for the proposed changes to the township's fees and charges bylaw is now complete. The report will be further discussed under section 11.7.1 administration. I now declare this public meeting adjourned at 9:56 a.m. Let's just read the resolution to go back into.
Moved by Councilor Hennessy, seconded by Councilor Saney, that council adjourn its public meetings and resumes its regular council meeting at 9:56 a.m.
All those in favor? That is carried. We'll get through some of these other things. Adoption of the October 30th regular council minutes. Any comments or amendments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councilor McKelvey, seconded by Councilor Sisson. Be it resolved that council approves the October 30th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes.
All those in favor? That is carried. Payment of accounts for November 13th. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councilor Saney, seconded by Councilor Hennessy. Be it resolved that the accounts in the amount of $72,356.61 be approved for payment.
357.61.
350, is that not what I said?
Yeah.
357.61?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Not gonna let you get away with $1 then. All right, in terms of the mayor's report, well, lots going on right now. We are working on developing the budget, and just so happens I'm on the finance committee for the county also, so I think everybody will be seeing the budgets in the next couple of weeks. This is a very challenging year. Particularly, we went to the government to say, last year you raised our OPP costs up pretty dramatically, and they came back with some funding. They looked at it for this year and told us that they're going to, for now and into the future, they will limit increases to 11% a year. 11% for us, which is, almost $2 million for the OPP. 11% is a lot of money. So that's one of the challenges. We did receive notice of our funding from the government, which has increased a little, but not nearly as much as we would want or we would need. Infrastructure here and at the county, also social services and childcare services are all things that and housing have all gone up dramatically. So in double digits. So it's going to be a challenging year for budgets, and everybody's working, staff and everybody is working diligently to try to control this to some reasonable levels. Lots going on also from the fact that this week, of course, was Remembrance Day, and we had a very, you know, moving ceremony at the this week downtown, the Village Green, the Cenotaph. It was well attended. I it, it the weather always seems to throw in an additional challenge to us, and but everybody did their duty, and I wanted to particularly note, well, first of all, thank the Legion and the, you know, the honor guard for you know, putting on a good display. And also I wanted to especially note the cadets who did a fantastic job, particularly um, in with that weather. So it was good ceremony. And then we move on to some happier things. On Friday night, we have the official tree lighting uh, ceremony at 6 o'clock. Um, so I won't be there an hour late. So say 6 o'clock, and you know, encourage everybody to come out for that, and then, you know, try to, you know, control the excitement for the next day, which is our famous Santa Claus parade, which starts at 11 o'clock and goes right through the downtown area. You know, I think we have confirmation from Santa Claus that he will be present, and that's terrific news. Always good for him to take out time to come to Minden. And then we have, right after the parade, we move on to Christmas in the Village. And that is a wonderful event, always well attended. And so please, you know, take advantage of all the things that are going on here in Minden. It will be a happening place this weekend. That's all I have from the mayor's report. Councillor Saini, anything from Roma Board?
Yes, thank you. And through the mayor, I guess I should give a shout out to Red Brick Communications, who developed our new logo. So if you go on our website, the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association, you'll see our new logo. They've done a wonderful job, and it better matches and align with AMO, who we work with very closely. So feel free to check that out. The other thing I just think I should bring to people's attention is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, has partnered with a group called Nominee. And Nominee is doing free workshops online for those who are thinking about running or for those who are rerunning for election. So anybody who wants to know more about what this is like, you can sign up through the AMO website to attend these workshops that are taking place from now up until the election time. So that's with the a partnership between AMO and Nominee. So feel free to check that out. It's all part of the Healthy Democracy program. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, course. Councillor McKelvey?
Sorry, I just had a question back on the mayor's report where you indicated the budget funding increase was a little bit of, that's our OMPF funding, I
Yeah.
assume. So it was over 200,000?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
Right, Councillor McKelvey, what was your?
I think our OMPF funding went up over 200,000. So
It did.
I just wanted to make sure we're talking about the same thing when you said we had I mean, it's probably just going to be enough to cover policing costs, but.
Yeah, or less. I'm thinking of all of our provincial grants and so on, but yes.
Yeah, it's the OMPF that we get, that we can use for basically everything to offset our expenses. I just wanted to make sure that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, it is, and it'll all come out when we do the details on the budget. Right, Moving on to correspondence and communications. We did not receive any requests to pull any of these items. So Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that council receives correspondence and communication items 11.1 through to 11.4 as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. All right, we're going to take a break till 10:20. 16 whole minutes, Deputy Mayor Shell. Well, welcome back. We now go into departmental reports. Ms. Kosh, our manager of waste facilities, has joined us, and please talk to us about batteries.
Thank you, Mayor Carter, and through you. So this report is bringing forward a agreement with Call to Recycle for battery collection services. The township entered into an agreement with Call to Recycle in 2021, and this agreement will replace that agreement that was in place, and it brings forward some revised compensation that works in our favor, and we will now be able to receive compensation for household batteries collected at our hazardous waste events. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Is this for all types of batteries, or are there any limitations, or?
There are limitations, so they have to be 5 kilograms or less.
Oh, okay. Questions? Councillor Ingram.
Through the chair, how did the car batteries get dealt with then?
So through the chair, the car batteries, we have a separate agreement with Cortha Automotive,
Oh, okay.
and they pick those up, and then we do get money for that as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? So nice of you. Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Ingram, that council receives report 2507 Waste Management Household Battery Services Agreement with Call to Recycle for information. And that council approves the Household Battery Services Agreement with Call to Recycle Attachment A, and further that bylaw 25108 Attachment B, authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement, be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda for approval.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Ms. McGuigan. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning. So through chair, you have report 2522 Bailey Barn update through the 2025 budget process. Council directed staff to attain a structural assessment of the Bailey Barn. Tatum Engineering Limited completed the engineering services, and there is 3 options that we have before council today. Option A is the new foundation at 120,000. Option B, the demolition of 20,000, potential for resale of logs. And option C, grant and funding for staff to research potential or variable grant funding options that meet the criteria for this project. The current state of the Bailey Barn is closed to patrons entering, but the structure is safe to view on site with staff conducting the visible inspections spring and fall. So staff is seeking direction on the best path forward related to the Bailey Barn from council today.
Questions, comments? Councillor Johannesson.
Thank you. As you know, I've been a bit of an advocate for the Bailey Barn since I've started council. That being said, I believe that we need to put this to bed at some point. But I would like to look at the grants if possible. And if that doesn't fall through, I would still like to keep some of the wood. Not get, like sell maybe some of it, but not get rid of it all, make some benches or something that we can put in somewhere just to keep the Bailey Barn history a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, sir. Sandy.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with what Councillor Johannesson just said. And also just to add, I believe that the foundation might be looking into funding options as well. So that's another possibility based on our minutes. So yeah, at this point, I do think we do need to, as you say, put this to bed sooner than later. So we're not going to be looking over the next, year and a half for grants, but just give an option to the foundation and to our staff to see if that's a possibility, and then make this decision at that time. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Shell.
I would agree with the grant opportunities and to see, I realize you're not an engineer, Candace, but I mean, for the last long time, it has been that you could actually stand on the outside and kind of view in. Was there, I read through, but was there any estimation of how long it could stay standing as it is if we were to just leave it as a viewing until we could get some grant funding?
So through the chair, they didn't specify like a time frame because it would need to be, you should engineer it every couple of years of it staying up to determine it. We have some direction that we're visual inspections and working with the CBO on that as well.
Okay, well, in that case, then my recommendation would be to kind of leave it as it is until we can see if we can get some grant money, because that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I certainly favor C also. I mean, if it's there, it's viewable. It's not a danger. Of course, if there's, ice storm, windstorm, whatever, those types of things probably have to be reviewed. But if there is a grant somewhere, somehow, in any way to do this, by all means. I mean, we can't afford the $120,000. I don't think, but to keep it the status quo and apply for grants, I think is a reasonable approach. Any other comments or questions? I think we're all leaning towards C.
So through the chair, so Counselor Ingram and Counselor Saney, I would just amend that motion that council direct staff to proceed with option C. Are you comfortable with that? Okay. So moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council receives report 2522, Community Services Department, Bailey Barn update as information, and that council directs staff to proceed with option C, grant funding that will meet the criteria of the project.
All those in favor? That is carried. All right, moving on.
So moving to report 2523, the Minden Hills Cultural Center Advisory Committee September meeting minutes. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Counselor McKelvey.
Not so much from this committee meeting, but I know in a previous one, there was talks about this agreement with the foundation, and council asked that this come back. I just wondered where we're at with that.
Counselor Saney, do you have an answer? Or
Yes,
go ahead.
it's on the agenda for our next meeting coming up very shortly. Thanks. No, at our committee meeting, the cultural committee meeting. It's on our agenda for that discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council receive report 2523, Community Services Department, Minden Hills Cultural Center Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated September 9th, 2025 is information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Chief Kruger.
Good morning, through the chair. This report is due to the request after the presentation of the master fire plan to have a quarterly report done as to how the fire department and the township are progressing. It is fairly lengthy, so I think it'd probably be easier rather than going line by line if I just answer any questions that members of council may have on the report.
Just before we get into individual questions, is there anything that jumps out at you and on this that is, wildly optimistic or off base or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say no. I think the major takeaway is that we are meeting all of our legislative requirements. And then there are a couple of, in the recommendations portion, there are a couple of nice to haves. For example, a training center here in Minden Hills that we could use. But outside of that, I would say no, there's nothing that leaps off the page.
Okay. Questions? Councilor McKelvey?
One of the things I wrote down here was the registration of the boat as a commercial vehicle. I don't believe you listed it as an item that's been actioned. Is there a reason?
Through the chair, yes, that was something that we were working on with the treasurer. And then once the treasurer left, it kind of got put on hold. So we are working on that right now. My new acting deputy chief is actually has taken that on.
Okay. And the pay for the D licenses, have we followed up on that?
So that through the chair, that is a very cost prohibitive item. It is quite expensive, and with, you know, needing to get 24 people driver's licenses, it is very expensive. And so we are working as best we can with the firefighters to try and alleviate those costs. And we have a couple of things that are in the works to try and help with that.
So just what is the cost then? Like if,
So there's costs involved with them getting their medical done. There's a medical form that they have to do. So there's a cost for that. There's also a cost to do the initial written test to get their learner's permit. And then there's also a cost for the actual licensing if and when they do the actual drive test and are granted their license. And so we're working, and there could be a cost also with the training portion. They have to drive for so many hours before they can feel comfortable to take the test. So we're working on a couple of different options to try and alleviate that so that there's not quite so much cost to the individual firefighters.
I thought this meant like the ones that already have their license, that we would continue to reimburse them for their costs, like a medical's $50 or.
Through the chair, that is not something that we have discussed, but there's certainly something that we could look at.
That's what I thought they were talking about, so.
What do other departments do?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is something that is, this is something that's not unique to Minden Hills. Every fire department in the province has similar issues outside of the larger cities, obviously. I don't really have an answer to that. Every department is different as to how they deal with it. Some departments bump up their training budget and use funds from the training budget to cover some of these costs. Others, quite frankly, just ignore it and don't have the licensed drivers. So that there really isn't an answer to that question.
Counselor Susan?
So there's only the one truck, right, that needs a Class D license that you have?
Through the chair, no, we have two apparatus that
Okay.
require diesel.
So in your opinion, does everyone need a D license or maybe just 12 people or?
Through the chair, that I would say no, not every member needs the DZ license, but the more we have that are licensed, the better we are equipped to respond when those apparatus are needed. Right now, I think we're at about a half dozen members that have it. So certainly, yes, if we could at least double that number, that would be fantastic.
Counselor Ingram?
Through the chair, I see the water supply testing has been completed. Any idea when we're going to see that report from Aqua? Do you know?
Through the chair, I have not seen the report yet myself.
Oh, okay.
I
All right.
believe it has been completed, but I don't know. I have not seen it yet.
Okay, it says in here it has been.
Yeah.
I'm just
Go
waiting
over
on.
to-
Hang on. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Yep.
Sorry, just to clarify, the flow testing, that's what,
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah.
flow testing has been completed and I will be discussing with the chief here shortly.
Awesome. Thank you. Is the blue new?
No, this is for Movember for
The blue is?
yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Counselor McKelvey?
One of the items on here is that we should develop ways of publicly acknowledging the local employers that allow our volunteer firefighters to leave their job and perform emergency responses. And I think that that should be a really high on the priority list, because if these businesses didn't do that, we would be in a lot of trouble. And I see where nothing has happened on that as far as status. I would like that to be moved up as a priority, because I really think that these businesses need to be thanked for doing this. And I think the public needs to understand what they sacrifice to allow this service. So the other thing I would like back on the D licenses, could you do a little survey of the 4 townships to find out what they're doing? I do know some are paying that medical and the D license renewal, not actually getting them up So it would be nice to know what the other ones are doing.
Through the chair, absolutely. I can, at our next county chiefs meeting, I can ask the other county departments what they're doing,
That'd be great.
certainly.
Thank you.
And further to your previous point, the acknowledgement of our local employers, that is something that we are looking at and we're trying to determine the best way forward to do that. And just as far as priority, like this isn't in priority, this is just in the number. And but certainly that it is something that we are looking at right now, and we're trying to determine the best way to do that.
Any other questions? Councilor McKelvey?
Just the Brace Bridge. It looks like, the agreements with Brace Bridge, is that where we're at? Be nice to get that one.
Through the chair, yes. So I actually just had a correspondence with the chief in Bracebridge a couple days ago. The draft agreement that I sent over, they have suggested a couple of minor changes, and to my understanding of his email, they're actually taking it to their council in the very near future. And then it will be brought back here for this council to look at and hopefully approve as well.
Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councilor McKelvey, that council receive report 25012 Fire Department Master Fire Plan Quarterly Update as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. You have another one on Fire Smart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a brief report to inform council that I had applied for a grant with Fire Smart to have a community wildfire protection plan created for the township. And the grant application was successful. And once the application is signed, we can move forward with an actual creation of a community wildfire protection plan for Minden Hills.
Good. Any questions? No, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councilor McKelvey, seconded by Councilor Sisson, that council receive report 2513 Fire Smart Communities Grant as information, and that bylaw 25115 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda, authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the transfer payment agreement.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief. Mr. Lewis, or CBO, please join us. Talk to us about septic re-inspections.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this report 2524 is in regards to septic re-inspection program. As you're aware, the municipality had a program going. It was stopped, and we're now looking at getting it back up and running again. And in order to do that, we're suggesting that we look at bringing the program in-house and having a septic inspector who takes care of the program. Okay. So I think the report was pretty well outlined everything that I was trying to share with council, and I'm open to taking any questions.
Just one thing, I know that, we were horribly let down by our supplier in that, in the previous iteration of this. Initially, when we were, I think in the first year, when we were trying to start, the records and so on that we had were pretty abysmal, and it took them about a year to put that together. What do you think the status of our records right now are? You say we've got approximately 5,000, but do we know we got 5,128, or we kind of have around that?
It's an approximate number. Okay.
Yeah.
The records that we deal with are the current records that are on City View, the current records that are on Cloud Permit, since we've switched over, and also what was transferred over when the health unit, switched out from doing the reinspection, I don't know because I wasn't here. I just, talking out loud, speculating. If you know where to look, you can find stuff, right? Okay. And, I think that was part of the problem. Okay. There's may have been I don't think that was the biggest problem. I'm just saying it was one of the things that was in the works there. We're pretty good at tracking down, the information that we need in regards to septics.
So if you were in restarting the program, where would you restart?
The suggestion is that we continue on from where the people that were taking care of it before left off, finish the cycle, okay, and then start getting the municipality on the 5-year rotation they anticipated to begin with. Okay, so that may take us about 2.5 years to get there. Okay, to finish off what was left, and then have the program in place so it just keeps rotating.
And we had done level 3 inspections, and some people want level 4 and yada, yada, yada. What are you looking at?
I think we need to be consistent. Okay. And, in the past, there's two things that come with, being consistent. There's probably a few more trivial things, but the two biggest things would be, the cost, right? And the type of inspection, because if you start changing the type of inspection you're doing for people going forward, then these people are going to say, well, either they're getting a better deal, or these people are going to say getting a worse deal, right? So we want to make sure that we're consistent, okay? And we want to be consistent for the first year. And I want to be clear about that. We want to be consistent for the first year fee wise. After that, we're going to go back and take a look at it. Because again, the people that already paid, let's say we put a lower fee in, it's not fair. Okay, you got to be consistent across the board until we get through this once. Okay, and then we can take a look at, where we're at.
And an awful lot of people have had inspections in, I guess, year 3, felt they never received a report or whatever. I mean, that was one of the places where it all fell apart, with our suppliers. So, do we have decent records on that, or do you feel you have a starting point that is going to be decent?
Yeah. Our reporting system, what I'm anticipating doing is using Cloud Permit. If we have an email address for the people, as soon as you're done, copy of the report can be sent to them. Okay, it'll just automatically go out. So yeah, we anticipate being able to communicate better with people. Okay. One of the biggest things in these programs, if you do any research on them, is, communicating and educating people. Okay. You got to educate people at the start, what they can expect when you come there. Okay. People don't like getting surprised when you get there and all of a sudden this is bigger or less than what they expected it to be. Okay. And they want to be educated at the end. They want to know what the result was of your inspection, but they ought to know. You can also educate them on what they have to do going forward. Okay. To protect their investment and, to make things run better. So that's our goal.
I guess my last question is, so, particularly older cottages, on the lake, in some cases, postage stamp lots that have a cottage on them and may or may not have had a decent septic system. If we go in and find that the septic system is, not acceptable or doesn't meet standards, and there's not really a place for the new septic system or whatever. And I know there's lots of new technologies that are out there, but do we have, when we find those types of things, do we have in place the, I guess, the plans or the policies to say, this is now what you have to do?
Yes, there's options in the code for what you have to do when you can't fit a septic on a lot. And it's there. And that's a routine thing for us. We deal with that all the time.
Okay.
Probably in the last couple of months, I've been out to 3 or 4 places where we had to look at alternatives because there's just no place to put septic. Cottage was there, but there's no place to put them, right? So, yeah, and there is in the legislation, and we obviously don't want to go there. We'd rather get compliance by cooperation, but there is the ability to, make people resolve those issues. But I'd far rather do it through communication and cooperation than, doing that.
Sure. Questions? Counselor Ingram.
Through the chair, congratulations, Tim, on your new position.
Thank you.
Should take me out for lunch sometime. No, it's not a gift. It's man's got to eat. Just one question really, and I just want clarification is all. I don't need to be right on, but what's the base salary for this job anticipated to be?
That's around 60-some thousand, and then by the time you get benefits and everything, it comes up to around 80 grand.
That's what okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Counselor Sisson.
I have a couple questions. Is this a mandatory project? We have to do this for the township?
It's depends on how that legislation says you have to, that means source water areas, okay, and so I'll, okay, here now, program, I think. Here, this area.
Thank you.
Tim, is your mic on?
The amount of waterways and stuff that we have around here do a number of things. The biggest thing they do is tourism, right? And provide, tourism plus providing a quality of life for people that, want to live in this environment. If we don't protect that waterway, it's going to be a problem, right?
My second question, probably you wouldn't know this, but of the 2,200 that were inspected, how many of them have not paid for that inspection? That might be a treasury thing.
Yeah, I think I didn't think that was an issue. I thought they had to pay upfront.
Yes.
But
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that could be a follow-up question, Counselor Sisson. My understanding is the majority have paid for the program.
And other thing, what about certificates? Anybody can get? I know I had mine done, nothing back. There's lots of them I had too.
Right.
that was
Through
the
you-
problem. We'll be sending out a report at the end of our inspections.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think you identified some challenges with the previous program. And that was one of the reasons when we sat down and looked at, and one of the game changers for the building department is that we have a software program now where whether it's a septic inspection or other inspections, we can manage those internally. And that's why Mr. Lewis is making the recommendation to council to bring this program in-house. And through, I think he's identified education and communication. We hope this is a much better program moving forward.
Counselor Saney.
Yes, thank you. So pleased that this is coming forward now, and also very pleased that we're going to hire one specialist in our department. I think it'll pay for itself in the long run with all the confusion that we've seen in the previous launch of this. And I think I got the most phone calls on council because it started off in my ward. So, and in my cottage and house as well. So really pleased that we're bringing this in-house. I want to just say that in terms of, is this a mandatory township program or not? In comparison, Lake Simcoe was a dead lake at one point, and this became mandatory by the province. And I went to conferences there that discussed how they're going to address the different septic inspections and what they're going to do, all the different ways of doing inspections. And so there's many different ways to do that. And I think the way that we're approaching this right now and the level that we're doing it is ideal for what we're situated with, particularly with our first round of inspections. So I really appreciate that direction that you're taking on this. And in terms of people don't pay, this is taxable. So this can go on their taxes if they don't pay. So there's not an issue about recovery if for what's being charged to do these municipal inspections. And just kudos, I get phone calls. When is this program going to be starting again? Now we've got some clarity for people, and I think that's going to rest assured a lot of people who are concerned about our lake quality. So thank you for grabbing the bull by the horns and tackling this one.
You're welcome.
Councilor McKelvey?
So the inspection is not a mandatory thing, but I am 100% behind us doing this reinspection. It's really unfortunate that the third party we hired, it didn't work out as good as we had hoped. However, there's all kinds of other companies out there that can do this. So sorry to be the Debbie Downer here, but I'm not in favor of bringing it in-house. I think by the time you look at this cost, you know, we already have a lack of space for people to work in. Eventually, this person's going to need a vehicle, obviously, to do the inspections. The cost is going to be more than what this is. The inspection fee, I mean, if you did the 240 times the inspections, I mean, you can't charge that much. It's a cost recovery. So I would like to see us put this out to bid and hire a company that, other than the one we had the last time, to do this program. I think that it takes more than one set of boots on the ground to even do these inspections.
Councilor Saney?
Yeah, I was once insured to do these inspections myself. So I'm very familiar with this particular topic. Doing it in-house is going to be most efficient, especially when you got some of the kinds of complaints that I received about communications, who to contact, who, when, going through our office to contact another office. Just the oversight and administration to keep that within one office, I think is going to save us a lot of money right there. And I did do the math on how many inspections you'd have to do per day in order to actually cover the cost of the salary. And it is actually substantial and in terms of being able to be cost recovery almost. I appreciated that we hired this out initially because our records weren't clear on the properties and the septic systems. We had 911 numbers crossed with the address numbers, crossed with the roll numbers, and all the properties were identified differently because of amalgamation and many things. So to hand that shoebox to another company and straighten that out was a really good direction to go. However, to do the actual inspections in-house, I think we got the most efficient and we can be much more accountable and assure that everybody's getting the same kind of inspection. Instead of a company that has hired several people out, which they did last time, at different levels of experience, different levels of thought, and hearing some of the stories that came back of the wasted scare of people worried about their septic that didn't need to take place. And the level of competency in terms of communicating to our residents. So I'm really pleased to keep this in-house and I think it'd be most cost effective. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Shell?
Just a quick question about, do we currently have a vehicle that could be used for this person, or are you
Yes.
anticipating? Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
I'm anything that's going to increase the budget, I'm just naturally against. But on the other hand, the one thing that I would appreciate about it being in-house is the consistency. You know, the third parties, and in talking to other, you know, municipalities using third parties, the consistency of the inspections was not very consistent. And so, you know, having somebody who's trained and is going to do them all the way we want them done, you know, I think that sort of weighs very heavily on my mind in this type of thing. Councillor Ingram?
Chair, this is a 5-year rolling as like forever, basically. We're gonna have to tender this out every so many years or give them a 20-year contract, basically, if we don't hire inside. We're gonna have to keep doing that. So I don't know what that long looks like as far as that go. I'm kind of up in the air on both ideas. I'm not sure which way I want to go there, but that's all.
Did you have some? Any other questions? All right, we have a resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receives report 2524, Building and Bylaw Septic Reinspection Program for information, and that council approves the hiring of a septic inspector.
All those in favor? Sorry, can we put up our hands again? That is carried. Moving on, Ms. Doherty. Please join us for the planning department. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first report is 25-77 for the zoning bylaw amendment application that had public meeting this morning. I don't have anything further unless council has questions.
Any questions from council? Seeing none. Please.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receive report 2577, planning is information, and that bylaw 25109 to approve the zoning bylaw amendment for lands subject to PL ZBA 2025083 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on. Next one on Shore Road Allowance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, report 2578. This is regarding concerns that we did receive with respect to the purchase of shore road allowance, which came up through the required public consultation process. In this case, the neighbors are concerned that conveyance of the shore road allowance will impact their access to their waterfront properties, or their water access only properties, which they understand they have prescriptive rights over. I've outlined a number of options in the report, and I did review this with our solicitor as well. From a policy perspective, I am recommending sale of the shore road allowance continue. The access over the adjacent unopened road allowance would still be available to those individuals, subject to council's preference for maintaining that access. And the neighbors would, in that case, need to park elsewhere, but otherwise they could potentially still use it without otherwise impacting it. So that is my recommendation, but happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilor McKelvey?
Because it's a shared road allowance, City of Kawartha Lakes has to be involved in any decisions we make.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So decisions with respect to the unopened road allowance, yes. Specific to the shore road allowance, they were included in the circulation, and we didn't receive any comments of concern. The neighbor who's also to the south of that shore road allowance, who does live in City of Kawartha Lakes, they were also circulated, and we didn't hear anything from that individual. So in terms of the shore road allowance, we're not aware of any concerns there. But yes, if council wanted to make any, have any direction with respect to the unopened road allowance specifically, then we would take that back to City of Kawartha Lakes to discuss.
Any other questions? Councilor Ingram?
I just want to get clarification as far, are we gonna take somebody's place away parking areas to park the vehicle to enjoy their cottage? Is that a possibility here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So at present, the couple of families who access their properties through the use of the unopened road allowance, my understanding is that they do park in a portion of the shore road allowance. My understanding that's been going on for the last 10 or 15 so years at minimum. So yes, in selling the shore road allowance, they would no longer be permitted to park there anymore. They would need to park either outside of the shore road allowance within the unopened road allowance or closer to the public road.
Is there room for that? Do you know? There is?
Councilor Sanders, do you have an answer?
No, that's fine.
If I may amend.
Sure.
Yeah, I did go down and look at the site because I'm very familiar around that area about access to the places that are just across the river. At one time, there was a road that started to be built there, private road on the other side, but it stopped at a certain property owner, so it doesn't go that far anymore. Or never did, I guess, but it goes part way. And the other thing is that there is access we have a public launch on Moore Lake that accesses all of those places as well. So there is a public launch, not just that road allowance. And there is another road allowance access. I don't know how far, but not that far up the river as well. When I was there, I saw a truck parked in the shore road allowance. There was room for 2 or 3 other vehicles. There was also a vehicle parked at the top of the hill because it's a very narrow road allowance going down. And then there's some parking area there on the side. So what I saw would make it very feasible to still park 2 or 3 cars there easily in terms of that road allowance area. And they have been parking there. What I also saw was that in front of this cottage house that is there in the family, if we didn't access this and they were allowed to park there, you would have a house and then vehicles in front of where the kids are picnicking or playing baseball or whatever. So you get this confusion between, is this a place where, it's a residence where the kids are playing out front? And then, as they go down to the lake, and do you want to have vehicles in that area? So that was very concerning in terms of safety if we do not approve this and that people are allowed to drive along that shore allowance there. So I did see that there was still access to this area. There was a large truck there. There was room for my large truck there. And there was another vehicle there. And I also talked to a neighbor on the Kawartha Lake side who also said that they never saw more than 2 vehicles there usually throughout the year anyway. So I think it does accommodate what it was there before. It might be a feeling of people are losing something across the river, even though they might not have necessarily needed it or used it, because this was a vacant land forever, owned by a family who then decided to build their home there. And so now that they have their home there, they want the shore road allowance and they want to make sure it's safe for the kids. So I think that's the situation that we're dealing with. And, that's, so I support your recommendation on this. But they seem very reasonable in terms of, the other possibilities to park. Thank you.
Councilor Ingram, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just needed a yes or no, really. Is there parking? Is there going to be available to people? But that's fine. Yes, it did, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor McKelvey.
That was loud.
So I'm fine with closing the shoreline road allowance. The people on the other side of the water don't get prescriptive rights on municipal land. I wanted to know though, is there still 66 feet of good usable road allowance? Or have they been crowding that way because there's a mountain on the other side or,
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so for the unopened road allowance specifically, you mean? So it is somewhat narrow through there, but primarily because a portion of the unopened road allowance, although there is still 66 feet in width of the physical land for it, there is a lot of brush or trees or vegetation. It's not all been cleared for the purposes of a road. There is a part of the unopened road allowance closer to the water that is a little bit wider because they have been storing boats and parking there, but it does intrude into the actual shore road allowance in front of this other property. So it is 66 feet wide. It's just not all been manicured or maintained to allow for the 66 feet across. I am also aware that someone I don't know who the someone is, but someone's been blocking off part of the unopened road allowance towards the city of Kawartha Lake side. And so it has been restricting some ability to park. Again, we would work with city of Kawartha Lakes to alleviate that issue though, if council wants to continue allowing access from that location.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilor McKelvey?
so, it's one thing to let people go down there and park. I'm assuming they must have put some kind of a boat launch in or something.
Through Mr. Mayor, so it's really just the land has been shaped in such a way as to allow for boats to enter the water somewhat smoothly. The boats that are being stored there are primarily canoes or a couple kayaks.
Because I have some concerns with the storage of boats on a road allowance. I just don't know that we want to. I mean, they may be happening all over the place, but once it's in your knowledge, it becomes more of an issue here as far as, do we really want to allow such a thing? Because
Well, are these boats being stored? Are they being stored on? Is there a rack, or are they just leaving them on the ground, or what is going on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when staff completed our site visit, they were just on the ground, like overturned, in a sort of sheltered area.
Yeah. It's not really storage, it's kind of
No,
left there.
just left there. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I also understand that they ensure that like the road allowance remains open for them to travel through. So I think they've cleared some brush and things like that. So they are also doing work within the unopened road allowance.
Any other questions? Read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receive report 2578 planning as information, and that council direct staff to continue processing application PL SRA 2024055 in accordance with policy 19, with the intent of conveying the eligible portion of the shore road allowance.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the road assumption.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is just the final step in order to formally assume Silverwood Road into, or at least the portion that wasn't previously, into our road system. So subject to council's approval of the bylaw, then this would be registered on title.
No letters of protest from Mr. Timmons?
No, there have not been.
Any questions? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councilor McKelvey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that council receive report 2579 planning as information, and further that bylaw 25110, being a bylaw to assume the surveyed portion of Silverwood Road, be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. Another short of road allowance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this is just the bylaw in order to complete the sale of the shore road allowance for the land subject to PL SRA 2024-076. And I don't have any other comments.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councilor Ingram, seconded by Councilor Saney, that council receive report 2581 planning as information, and that bylaw 25112 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda to stop up, close, and convey part of the original shore road allowance with respect to application PL SRA 2024076.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Ms. Blanchard. Been a while since you've been on the hot seat here, so welcome back.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, while my name is on this report, I'm taking very little credit for producing the report. It is particularly the finance team. This is a report that gives you our finances to the end of September 30th. But I will give great credit to Ms. Blanchard for producing the report. So away she goes. She's going to give you the highlights.
Off I go. So I do have a captive audience. It'll only take me about an hour if that's okay to go through this. So again, thank you to the finance team, because I did not do this all by myself. Hopefully you've received a few things here in your package. So hopefully it's been fairly understandable. The first part of the report was really just outlining what we were offering for your review. And that was followed by some explanation on some of the things that we reviewed to try to get this as accurate as possible. And the final pieces of the report itself was to just give you an analysis of the expenditures. because the main schedule just kind of rolls everything up into a one-liner. So it was about breaking those down into little chunks so you could see where you're sitting. I mean, theoretically, all things being equal, you'd want to see that you would have, 25% on the line items, but that does not adjust for seasonality and how, certain departments, when their peak areas are. So the 25% is just a ballpark kind of number to work with. The second part of that was to give you a breakdown of wages and benefits, because that always does tend to be the challenge in trying to budget, because, you do incur vacancies throughout the year, and then a timeline to replace those positions as well. Overtime and whatnot can always be a bit of a guessing game. So on that schedule, I've given you the position, but while it looks like, you've got 1.7 million, there's still a third quarter to get through. So I basically took your budget and said, well, if you spent the full 25% that was remaining of your budget, that would get you to about a $400,000 surplus on your wages, which represents about almost 6%. So the only other thing I wanted to go over with council was I did try to do a projection for you, because what you're seeing right now is a 4.5 million dollar surplus. So what creates that is the fact that we have posted taxes for the entire year. So it's a bit deceiving, right? Because all things again being equal, your levy was 11.75 million. So if you were to break that down into a monthly number, you're just over 900,000. Multiply that by 2, you've got $2.7 million, right? So when you post your taxes all at once, it's going to be challenging without doing some kind of a projection, because you're not likely to know what your end year is going to be until you basically get to the end of the year. So, so here's what I did is I assumed that on your expenditure lines, you would spend 25% of your budget to get you to the end of the year. Again, that does not account for seasonality. I also did the same with revenues. Unless you'd already, most of it, some of it you've reached the mark, but for example, penalties and interest, you have reached that. You are now at 103% on penalties and interest. But I didn't cap that one, because you are going to continue for the next 3 months to charge penalties and interest on taxes and to accumulate interest on your bank accounts. So I just wanted to point out, this is a very, very high level, projection. And so what that gets you to is to about a $900,000 surplus. So I just wanted to give council some assurance that you should not fall into a deficit position by the end of the year. And I would say that, past years, this is pretty typical of, where you've landed. And I did attempt as well to break that down for you. I also wanted to point out that on the capital side, there was a summary there as well. So it points out the capital that has been incurred, the expenditures, and how that is funded. So your budget last year, you were going to finance that capital with $1.5 million coming from your operating fund. So that's made up of taxation and a couple of grants that you get. Gas tax is one, and I apologize, I know it has a new name, but I continue to call it gas tax, and the OCIF funding. So right now you are, so that 1.5, all that I've had to pull over to make the capital fund balance is 471,000. So there's still some stuff to flow through on the capital side. And, but again, I assume that all of that is going to happen to get you to the $900,000 surplus. So I've broken that down for you. You know, that includes the 400,000 in wages and some material and supplies, some additional revenues, and some contribution to reserves. And I also wanted to point out on the capital side is that there were some items I'd like to view this initially when council gets that capital through the budget process, is that it's really more of a project summary for council, but there were some items on there that would not be considered capital for the purposes of, you know, depreciation, you know, assets on your balance sheet and depreciating them. One example is if you're doing plans, like a master plan, currently, the one that comes to mind is your strategic plan. So those are not capitalized items. So those I did push back over to the operating side of the equation. And so there you go. There's just a quick synopsis. I hope it was somewhat understandable and gives you some confidence that you should end the year in a, you know, in a good position. So happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much for all this. It's always good to know that you're not going plunging into a deficit at the end of the year. And, you know, we did have a number of vacancies through the year, which obviously contribute to almost half of that surplus, right? Okay, questions? Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you very much, Lori. This is really good information. I'm glad you're back. I do have a question on some of the budget. When you look at Committee of Adjustments, for instance, I think it was the separate or the second page, it shows 0 for a budget, and going back and checking my budget, it was 22,000 in expenses that we had budgeted. I'm just wondering how that could happen. There's another one too. I believe it was, I find my notes. I just wondered if there's other stuff that perhaps this has happened to it that I didn't look at. Short-term rental. There's no expense budget, which again, I went back and looked at, should have been a $30,000 expenditure because we were trying to make the expenses and the revenues balance out because it's supposed to be a program that doesn't cost the taxpayers. I did at one point think science-based rental wasn't budgeted, but I did find it in a different area. What's being allocated is not in the same line. I'm just, how did this, I'm not sure how to ask this question, but I think you know what I'm asking.
I do. Yeah, thank you. So one of the first things I did, because when I came, the taxes revenue had not been posted. I think in June you received a report that showed that you actually had a significant deficit, and that's only because your tax levy had not been posted yet to the GL. So the first thing that I did was to balance your budget in the tax system, in the financial software system, what had been posted there as budget numbers against the levy to make sure that when I posted the tax revenue, everything was going to match up. So what occurred was that on the budget schedules that had been prepared, I'll give you an example of it was the short-term rentals, was that it looks like it was the last line on a schedule, and the Excel formula didn't add all the way to the bottom. So while it appeared that you had included the 30,000 for short-term rentals, it didn't actually get added in to be part of your levy. Likewise for Committee of Adjustments. had the same question actually yesterday at senior management from Amanda. She was also wondering the same thing. So in order to get you so that your levy balance, your budget balances to your levy, and you do that for a number of reasons. Number one, you're going to go through an audit. And so the auditors are going to want to see that you are balanced. So I had to reduce those lines to zero to make it work. It does mean that going into your 2026 budget, you know, you're, for lack of a better terminology, you're kind of at ground zero on those. And so you're just going to have to pull, you know, numbers back in. So there was a third one, and that wouldn't have been as noticeable. It was on the capital side. It was a grant that had been shown on the schedule, but also did not get added. So fortunately, I will say, fortunately, you know, they're not hugely significant numbers, right, in comparison to your overall expenditures and or your overall levy. So, so that is the explanation on that one.
Councilor McKelvey?
So basically, we're like $52,000 that we have to add to the budget if all things stay the same.
Right.
To the budget next year.
Right. Exactly. If you wanted to duplicate the need, then yes, that's exactly what you need to do.
Okay. The other, I appreciate the detailed information that we got later. One of the things in the actuals for these tax registration revenue, again, that goes back to the discussion early on the fees and charges. I mean, we're $112,000 over what we thought we were going to get for that. It just seems like a awful amount of money to have hit people when they're already down, which basically is the case when it comes to tax registration. My other question is short-term rentals and the MAT tax. According to this, we've only taken $2,962 in MAT tax. I don't know how this works or how we get that money or what, but that's way too low. Like that seems really, really off. And I don't know what happens here. Like we set it at 4%. Does this include the full 4% or is this just the 2% we keep?
Would you answer? No. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I can't remember who was having the conversation that I overheard, but Scott O'Bell said that some of the monies have not been transferred yet. Okay, and I'm sorry, I don't know anything more about, you know, what in fact that means. I think that's something that we have to get to the bottom of.
Oh, so maybe he's talking from the county level. We have to take 2% and give it to them.
Yeah,
But
we have to figure this out. Yes.
like $3,000.
Yeah.
Is like $140,000 less than it should be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have to, I know that they were behind on some things and again, I was only overhearing a conversation. So
at the county level, they're still doing their corporation and stuff like that for their 2%, but our 2% here, like we should collect the full 4% and remit, but even if it was only 2% on here, it can't possibly only be $3,000.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we don't have the answer here.
Okay, we just really need to look into that one, I guess.
If I may, I can tell you that that represents the full 4%. And that we do realize that we need to, you know, when it gets booked, we need to split it between liability to the county and
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if anybody else had any questions while I continue looking through. Or I may be done. Oh, no, I'm not. Sorry. Um, under property and the expenditure lines, it would appear we have lots of room to do some repairs and maintenance, and I would like to suggest that we fix the ceiling in this facility room right here, because it looks awful.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have, as part of the budget process, we've got quite a few improvements to this wing of the building that we want to do.
But we have money in this year's budget right now. Or are you talking next year's budget?
I'm talking both.
Okay, so the other concern I have is, and this came up when we received our first quarter report, it became apparent that we weren't allocating wages out according to actuals for some operations such as a cemetery. There was just a blanket entry made to charge the cemetery $89,000. Which I had mentioned at the time, we really can't do that and shouldn't do that. And I thought that was going to get changed. And we would start allocating actuals to these things. Same as like certain parks. I mean, you might want to look at what it costs you to operate certain transfer stations and compare it to how many people are going there. So without those allocations being made, we're really not in a position to be able to analyze this stuff. And I just wondered why that didn't change back with the first quarter, or what's our plan going forward, or.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might ask Ms. Pelly, I know we made some changes to the general ledger related to wages. Is that, am I correct? You need to come up and use the mic. So Councillor McKelvey, you are correct, and we did have that discussion. I think that was a change that was made with the previous treasurer, but I know that Ms. Pelly had been working on.
Mr. Mayor. So they were all being allocated to overhead, and we have since made that change as of July 1st, and we're budgeting there, but they're landing where they should, and then it'll all roll up. So as of June 1st, that changed, or July 1st, sorry.
Okay. So then cemetery as an example, like they would have been working in the cemeteries since July 1st. Like, I mean, that would have been the bulk of their, and it doesn't seem to be in the actuals other than maybe a few hundred or something, but like this. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm trying to find it again here. Cemetery wage budget and cemetery wage actuals are very close, and that was one entry that was made.
Yes, and I can't really speak to that because I don't know.
And that's fine. Sorry, Candy. It's just that if we changed July 1st to start allocating this out on the basis of, you know, if someone works for 2 hours at the cemetery, it's charged there, then the actual should have been a lot higher. So I'm inclined to think it's still not getting. I can talk about this offline, do you want?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor McKelvey's brought up a point that we had identified earlier in the year. I know that staff has made the change, and if something's not being reflected in the report, we're happy to take that offline and take a look at it.
Okay, because yeah, I finally found it here, sorry.
At the end of the day, our totals are correct and the same, but it's just the way it's being split up into the various departments for doing supplemental analysis is not accurate, and we need to get that done.
The wage line is at, 89,242 and the budget was 89,228. So we mustn't be allocating out cemeteries, just one example. It's an easy one for me, so. But I'm sure you can all have a look and see. I'm glad we've changed it come July.
Are there any other questions? You have a resolution?
Moved by Counselor McKelvey, seconded by Counselor Sisson, that report 2539 Finance Quarterly Financial Report Q3 be received for information.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very, very much for getting all this fun with numbers. All right. Administration, this is you, Madam Clerk.
Through the chair, yes. So I did take notes throughout the public meeting on a few suggestions that council made at the table today. I did amend the resolution to include those as well. Was there anything else that council wished to discuss or address through the fees and charges?
Councillor Sisson?
I just don't understand why we have to coincide with the county with our meeting dates. I mean.
Oh, sorry, wrong fees and charges. But we'll get to that.
Councillor McKelvey?
Sorry, could you just read out what you got from this
Absolutely.
morning? That would help me know whether.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vicky.
Absolutely. So the council received report. Do you want me to just read out the edits and leave it? Thank you. Okay, thank you. So under Schedule B, which was basically geared to finance, tax registration files sent for processing 500, registration for tax arrears certificate 500, first notice of tax arrears certificate 200, final notice of tax arrears certificate 200, cancellation of arrears certificate 200, preparation for the extension agreement and bylaw 500, and then tax sale was 1,000. I know there was discussion about reimbursement of the 2,500 for a few errors that were made, and staff will take that offline. I won't include that in the resolution though, unless council deems it necessary to do that. Schedule C, fire inspections. We just made a little tweak in the wording to say payable in advance of inspection. Schedule H, removal of the fees proposed for the bleachers per event, picnic tables, and the additional garbage recycling cans. And then Schedule J was just housekeeping. We're going to put those fees back in the schedule for now and then report back after. But again, staff will take that offline and collaborate and report back at a future date.
Any other questions? Councillor McKelvey?
I believe Schedule E roads entrance permit was to change to be 3.
I changed it right in the,
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of a housekeeping.
yeah, I changed it right in the schedule, Councillor McKelvey.
Where did we land on the bouncy castle?
Through the chair, I believe that it was sort of a mixed
Yes.
opinion. So we just left it as proposed.
Yeah, Councillor Ingram?
Did we want confirmation that the Rotary Club is okay with us charging, or you do have that? You did get confirmation it's okay to charge from Rotary?
Yeah, so through the chair, when discussing with Rotary asked us what was on our equipment list of what we were looking to purchase that we were preparing for budget time. And the bouncy castle was on it, and it was explained that it would be using for events as well as registered youth programming, as well as the potential for renting it out for birthday parties.
Thank you.
Councillor Saney?
Thanks. So just a clarification on how our waiving of the fees will work with policy 91 and if that changes that or whatever, because some of those things such as the benches or things that we'd have out for special occasions that people applied under policy 91 to have for their event. So the fees that were waived under that, now we're waiving it outside that policy. I just don't know how those two will will interact. Just a clarification on that. Thank you.
So through the chair, because council hasn't actually set a fee to it, it would just be a request that the CSD team provided if it's requested, and there is no fee, so it wouldn't be processed through that policy 91 granting. Just be like an in-kind.
Okay, so in follow-up, if a group wants that, they don't have to go through policy 91 in that budget line anymore. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So through the chair, I think they would still communicate that upon submission of their application, that is something that they would prefer added to their event as an assistance. But there's no fee associated.
Any other?
If that, did I cover everything, Candace? Yes.
Counselor Sani?
Just curious, what's the upset limit for policy 91 this time? You know, offhand. Thanks.
So through the chair, the budget for 2025 was 21,500. So we're currently, we have still some to process. We'll be a little over that 21.5, and we've made adjustments for the 2026 budget.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
Okay. Sorry. So the amendment, Counselor Sani and Counselor Ingram, you're comfortable with how the resolution's been drafted? Okay. So moved by Counselor Sani, seconded by Counselor Ingram, that council receive report 2538 administration comprehensive fees and charges bylaw for information, and that council directs staff to bring forward the 2026 comprehensive fees and charges bylaw to the next meeting for adoption with the following revisions. Schedule B, finance, tax registration, file set for processing 500, registration for tax arrears certificate 500, first notice of tax arrears certificate 200, final notice of tax arrears certificate 200, cancellation of tax arrears certificate 200, preparation of extension agreement and bylaw 500, tax sale 1,000. For Schedule C, the fire inspections, a word change payable in advance of inspection. Schedule H, removal of proposed fees, bleachers per event, picnic tables, and the additional garbage recycling cans. And Schedule J, implement the Olympian fees to be included in the scheduling.
All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Now you're talking procedure bylaw.
So through the chair, I'll just give a brief overview. Every municipality is legislated under the Municipal Act to have a procedure bylaw to govern the proceedings of council, committees, and boards of a municipality. The current bylaw that we use now is 2244, and that was approved in 2022. It has been amended in December of 2023, and that was just to include that additional meeting in August. So staff have just been evaluating over the last few years just to sort of review the procedural bylaw and how council meetings are conducted, and just wanted to improve the efficiencies, effectiveness, and try to align scheduled meeting dates a little with the County of Haliburton. To keep with those efficiencies of moving forward with meetings, staff just wanted to bring forward a few reports, just breaking this down a little bit with changes being proposed, just to get some of council's feedback and give council time to actually consider and provide feedback for each revision that's being proposed. So today, the 4 items that I would like to discuss with council to get feedback are the meeting schedules of regular meetings, some housekeeping item just to include that August meeting in the new proposed bylaw, notice of motion and delegations. And if I just may request through the chair, if I could just tackle each item, get council's feedback, and then move on to the next item. I just think it'll be clear for staff when bringing it back in future.
Okay.
Just as a heads up, also, the next report that staff will be bringing back will actually tackle those proposed changes to include the strong mayor powers within the procedural bylaw. So again, for efficiency purposes, just wanted to break that up so it's just not so time consuming here at the table. So I'll start with the meeting schedule for the regular meetings. I know Councillor Sisson has already sort of voiced some concerns. I'll just explain to council. So County Council meets, their meetings are held on the second and the fourth Wednesday of the month. And Minden Hills, we meet the second and the last Thursday of the month. So staff is just seeking feedback to see if council or how council feels about switching and having our meeting on the Thursday of the fourth rather than the last. It will just sort of align that the council meeting and the Minden Hills Council are happening on the same week. It would actually free probably up a little bit of scheduling time or maybe some vacation time for the deputy and the mayor. But also for staff, if we're trying to collaborate and attend meetings and whatever, it sort of frees up a week as well for the county and Minden Hills to collaborate and join in some of those partnership meetings that we entertain from time to time. So just seeking council's feedback on that first.
Deputy Mayor Shell.
Counselor Sisson wants to go first. I will say that I am fully supportive of this because I think it's only happened 3 times this year where there was a fifth Thursday in the month. But for myself, sitting at both, it's much easier to have it all in one week than to try to schedule. And especially when you've got appointments or that kind of thing, or holidays, but mostly appointments and things. For me, it's much easier to say, this is my heavy week twice a month and everything is at the same time. But
I'll concur with that, and I think that, it's not only the meetings, but it's also all the committees. I think most of the committees that you were on happened on council Thursdays. But with police detachment board and various other things, they try to schedule them for the Thursdays of, in between meetings. And so the idea of being able to have, your situation of, often have had, 5-6 weeks in a row where there's been something that's happening and there's just no way of being able to take off a whole week. So I don't see that it's of consequence really to Minden. I mean, we're still the same meetings a month. It just comes down to, when they take place. So. Councillor Saini?
Yeah, I support this change. And I think also that there are community groups that try to schedule things that want to invite councils. So if they're dealing with a conflict between the county and the Minden Hills one, it creates less time that they can schedule events that they want their representatives to come to. So it has a community base as well as recognition of the time that is spent both the county and the municipality. So thank you.
Go ahead.
But I mean, that's my opinion. I'd like to understand what Counselor Sisson, if he does have an issue, maybe it's something that I haven't thought of, that if you'd like to tell us what it was, Bob?
No, I just want to know what the issue was to change it, that's all.
Yeah.
I know it's you and Bob now.
Yeah, exactly.
In all fairness, I had no idea this was coming to the agenda until you saw it at the same time.
So moving on to the next item. So the next item, and my apologies, I will sort of make mention that as we're going through, I did attach the current procedure bylaw. If you wanted to follow along, I've just sort of highlighted the area. So the next area that we would be proposing a change is section 2 for regular meetings. And that's just basically to rescind the amending bylaw and keep it clean and just have the current proposed bylaw acknowledging that change for the additional meeting in August.
Councillor McKelvey, is that?
Sorry, through the chair. In the procedure bylaw, it's section 2 regular meetings. I think it's on page 11. But the amending bylaw to acknowledge the change is the December bylaw, and it's 23, I think 11. It's the amending bylaw that's attached, 131. So it's 23-131. That's the amending bylaw that we would be rescinding.
So basically, just trying to make sure, like, are we still going to go down to one meeting a month in July
Correct,
and two in August?
correct. So
Okay.
we would just make that tweak so that it says just July and December would be.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this?
Okay. So the next item of business was the notice of motion, and in the procedural bylaw, we do have a definition on page 5 on our current procedural bylaw, and in section 19 under subsections 1 and 2 on page 18. Basically, the current bylaw, it does provide a description. However, there's really no clear guidelines, nor is there an acknowledgement on our current agenda template that we use. So staff propose a new definition. Notice of motion shall mean a notice of motion provided to the clerk in writing by a member of council requesting the inclusion of a motion on a future agenda of the council meeting. So the guidelines itself would be that the written notice shall be given in writing to the clerk no later than 4:30 p.m. on the Wednesday preceding the next regular council meeting, so that the matter may be included on that agenda package. A notice of motion shall not be debated at that meeting that we actually included on the agenda. However, it shall be discussed at the subsequent meeting. So we add it to that meeting, that first meeting, so council sees that it is coming forward for discussion at the next meeting. The notice of motion shall include the name of the member of the council that's proposing it, the date, the agenda they wish to appear it on, and the subject heading and how the notice of motion is to be read. The presentation of the notice of motion does not require a mover and a seconder at that time of including it on the first agenda until it actually becomes before the meeting for discussion. So happy again. This is just staff's way of trying to organize it. So it's just a little clearer for council and staff on coordinating notice of motion. And we're always happy to make changes on how to proceed with this or omit it altogether.
Questions?
Is council comfortable with those? Okay. Big check mark. Okay. And the final item is delegations. So currently this is under section 15, which is page 15. The current formal process will remain for those formal matters that are actually prepared ahead of time and provided to the clerk's department. Typically the delegations are permitted 10 minutes. If it's, just one or two members, and then 15 minutes if there's 5 delegates presenting, unless otherwise the chair extends that time frame. So none of that is going to change. What I'm proposing to actually add is an agenda item delegation. So this process, because I have heard a lot of feedback from our public, so I'm trying to work with the public and work with council and staff. This will allow members of the public to speak to a report matter that has just been published to the public. So that means on the Friday, we always pre-publish the council and we give them the council package that we're proposing to publish live Monday morning. But that doesn't give the public time to actually come to the clerk and request a delegation on the matter at hand. They don't see the report till the Monday. So I'm trying to work with the public and provide them a limitation. Sorry, not a limitation, but an opportunity to speak. But we would limit those delegations to 3 per scheduled meeting, just to be efficient. We will still request that individual submit material on a smaller scale to address the item on the agenda, and they would have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. That is, I know it sounds like a small amount of time, but it actually is quite lengthy if it's just a 1-pager. I did put in a little extra area, and depending on the issue, that the mayor, clerk, and CAO may determine to defer the the delegation or actually not included on an agenda. And this would be in the extreme cases that we would actually not put the delegation on. In most cases, we would still adhere to the procedural bylaw, like if it's a legal matter or outside of council's jurisdiction, and so on and so forth. So happy to get any feedback because this is a huge change.
Councillor Singh?
Yes, this is something, I'm glad that you're working with the public to address this because it is a very critical issue. I mean, we need their voices at this table. I think this is a beginning, but I don't see it as the final way to go to make sure those voices are at the table. I think that limiting it to 3 delegations, how you choose, that's all kind of, you know, not very transparent, but I know there'll be some justifications in it, but it's not clear to the public what that is and how we choose those 3 delegations, for example. I think that what's happened, when we used to have committee of the whole, and then we had council, at the committee of the whole, we weren't making decisions. So people knew about it and had talked to their neighbors and things well before our meetings. So that was one of the advantages of having a committee of the whole where we could debate issues, and then the council was more formal and we pretty well hashed out all the pros and cons of things. So I think that it had more community engagement, if you will, an opportunity. So I think in the future, I'd like to revisit if that's a way to accomplish that again. Because I think there's a line between how efficient we are, but how open we are. And that's my concern. I think we're going in the right direction here with this, so I'll support it. But I don't think it's open enough at this point. It's the right direction though. So I think the right to present to the council formally is critical to our democracy, and we all know that. And so you're really touching on a really important issue here. So thanks for working with the public to this. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think what Councillor Sandy just brought up on the number of delegations, that would be my only concern, because for the most part, we're fairly generous with our delegations in terms of allowing people to speak and come forward. But let us say we had a major issue, like we want to build a new water tower, which was going to cost, whatever number of millions, or some large development or so on. There could be a lot of people that want to speak to that, and not necessarily part of different groups where they can, assemble together. So I would like there to be at least something in there that says that under, certain circumstances that number could be increased. Go ahead.
So through the chair, I appreciate that feedback. Absolutely. That's why we're proposing it in such a manner, is to get these changes sort of cleaned up before we bring forward the actual bylaw. And to that respect, this will not negate at any time the regular public meeting process that we do hold for our public. But I do find that the public does struggle with the understanding of what a public meeting is and what a delegation is. And so this is sort of just a way for a trial period to sort of start a process and see how well it works. But I'm happy to make that amendment just to sort of put in at the discretion.
Or it could say that normally not more than 3.
Not more
or
than
something.
3.
Councillor McKelvey?
I really like this. I have seen it at other townships. I believe the previous township you were with had this. It allows people, because so often people see the agenda, and if they'd have known in advance, they would have made a delegation request. So as far as them saying, okay, well, it might be a legal matter or something, we can't let them speak. Well, if it's on the agenda, they should be able to speak to it. So I don't really want to limit it to 3. I get your point that you don't want 25 people coming and saying the same thing, but I just think this is wonderful. I really do. This is far more engaging with the public. The other thing I have as a concern is that they have to contact the clerk on the Tuesday. There are several times our agenda doesn't go public until Tuesday.
The only time that our agendas are not public, on the Monday is if it's a statutory holiday. We always publish to the public. Sometimes it's the Monday night, but we do always publish to the public on the Monday.
I just think that that's a little bit of a tight time frame. I'm wondering if we could push that to the Wednesday. Only because
Um,
they just, people are busy and they might not look at it in enough time that, oh, Monday night, they look at it after they get home from hockey at midnight and that sort of thing.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Wednesday at noon, yes.
Yeah.
Just
I guess you have to also look at the fact that, you need to publish it and so, you on Tuesday decide, no, I want to talk to that. And then when you're now on the agenda, somebody else would go,
well,
no,
but it
I
doesn't
wanna
get
talk."
published. If I see something on the agenda and I want to be able to come and give my spiel to council so they have my thoughts on it, that doesn't get published again.
Actually, through the chair, if I may clarify, actually, I'll be treating it just like a regular delegation so that the council and the public are aware of that individual's comments, or concerns. Again, it would be just a small scale, one pager. I'm not asking for like a 25 slide presentation.
Oh,
or
so they
anything
have
like
to
that.
actually submit something in.
Just an
writing?
email or let the clerk know so that we can put something on the agenda. I think it's important that the public understand what the delegation is attending and why. Otherwise, you may get someone else with a comment saying, well, I actually I would have, tuned in to see what this person had to say because I'm a neighbor or whatever. So, I don't know. Again, this is feedback to see, and just because we make this change doesn't mean we can't change it again. Like, I am more than happy to make an amendment if we feel this doesn't work. So,
Sorry, CAO,
I think I'll listen to you.
Councilor Ingram.
Through the chair, just on the number of people at a delegation, as you suggested there. So can you not just set it up if there's a certain number that you're comfortable with, you say you need a spokesman at that point? Is that a way to go for the group?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and council's feedback is well appreciated. I think this is a starting point for us to sort of flesh out delegations in more detail. We have spent some time discussing how we publish our agenda and make people aware and then allow them to come and speak to council. It is never the intention to shut down council and community dialogue. I think to the example, there's a few things that can happen if we had the hot topic that we knew many people might want to speak to. I think to the clerk's point, we could call a special meeting or we could have a public meeting. I've in very previous municipalities, sometimes to Councillor Ingram's point, we're looking for a delegation to say something different than was presented by the previous delegation. Or if you've got 7 or 8 people from the same neighborhood, can you appoint a spokesperson? So I think there are ways that we can engage with our public fully, but also put some efficiencies around the meeting. So I think the clerk has done a really good job of a starting point. And I think we're all on the same page that we do want to allow more opportunity or as much opportunity for the public to speak to council.
Yes, sorry, CAO, sorry.
I just wanted to clarify as well, and this was part of the reason for limiting, is when I start making these proposed changes and whatever within our procedural bylaw, I look at the procedural bylaw as a whole, and I look at our agenda as a whole. So I start considering, okay, we have 4 public meetings, we have 2 major formal delegations, and then we have 3 people coming and speaking to the report at 3 minutes. So already, if you take those factors into effect, you're already looking at, depending on how contentious some of those planning public meetings are, you're already looking at, hey, we're into noon already with our council meeting, and we haven't even touched base on our reports. Now, I will say that I do work with the CAO and department heads on a regular basis to try and make the agendas as efficiently and effective as possible now. We talk at department head all the time and try to rearrange different reports so that we're not bombarding one agenda with a million things for council to have to make a decision on. So or the public to come and entertain any of their events in a timely fashion. So those are just some of the thoughts that the clerk's department does consider when proposing changes.
Councilor McKelvey?
So I just, looking at our agenda today, and I get that you try to keep it so we're not here till midnight, but I mean, it's very rare we're here for dinners, for supper. So I don't want to limit the opportunity. Like, I love this whole proposal. I'm looking at our agenda today. Somebody may have looked at this on Monday night, and lake associations may wanted to come and comment on the septic reinspection. That's the only thing on here that somebody might have been interested in. You might have another agenda that has a lot of things on it that they might, but it's good to hear that, because so often we make these decisions and then you hear off the street afterwards and go, oh, I wish I'd have thought of that, or I wish I'd have known that, or I wish. But so I don't really want to limit them if we can avoid it, but I would like to know from our CAO, because in your previous life, they did this and I'm sorry, I can't remember the township, but did they reissue the agenda then to show that people were coming, or did? I've never seen that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McKelvey, I think rather than speaking off the top of my head, I would, I think there's various different ways. I think the clerk has mentioned a want to be transparent to the public. I've seen municipalities where information's circulated to council. So I think there's various different ways. And I think it depends on whether somebody wants to come and do a presentation that's more formal. That's very different than sort of putting on half a page or 1 page your comments or your concerns as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we can certainly look at a number of different ways.
Go ahead.
And I will take this feedback seriously going forward. And what I also want to mitigate is someone calling up, because this does happen quite frequently, where we get an individual that contacts the clerk department. I would like to be a delegation. I would like to be a delegation. And then so you acknowledge what agenda and for what item. And then they're like, okay. And then they don't reconfirm whether, like, we send them an email, we don't get an answer back. So this is what I'm trying to prevent as well, is I want a confirmation that for sure you're coming. Here's what you're talking about. This is what report it's regarding, just to give a clear understanding, even for council, why they're coming to the table.
I don't think that, this isn't trying to get a solution in search of a problem. I mean, I don't think we've had more than 2 delegations at any meeting in this term of council. So it's not like we get lots of requests. I mean, we'd like to encourage them, and I encourage people all the time to make delegations, but a lot of people just don't want to take the time or are afraid or whatever it may be, but they don't want to come forward. So I think we need to have a starting point and then see how it goes, and then change it as needed. But you've got a bunch of feedback, and let's come up with a reasonable starting point, and we can enact it, and it can always be changed.
So that concludes.
Okay.
that concludes the items that are proposed at this meeting. Again, as I reiterated before, the next report will come back and that will be with like regarding the strong mayor powers and how it affects the procedure bylaw. And they're just minor tweaks as well. Okay, that's it.
You have a motion to receive this?
Moved by Counselor Saini, seconded by Counselor Johansson, that council receives report 2539, administration, procedural bylaw reviews information.
All those in favor? That is carried. And you're up again?
Okay, so I'm just going to pull up this report. So the next report before council is in regards to strong mayor powers. So strong mayor powers are legislated under Ontario statute, which grant mayors that have been designated through the municipality enhanced authority and responsibilities over various governance matters, including municipal budget. Under these powers, the mayor is required to present a budget by February 1st. The legislated timelines to adopt the budget is approximately 55 days unless respective timeframes have been shortened. I will touch on a few of those items, but to start off, basically presentation of the budget. The date of the meeting will be advertised as normal in the regular local newspapers and Township's website. The public meeting process will be included in the first scheduled meeting. And once the mayor processes the budget, it will be distributed to council and the public through the clerk's office and placed on a meeting agenda. Council will receive the agenda package prior to that scheduled meeting. And if there are no amendments from council at the time to the mayor's proposed budget, the proposed budget would be deemed as adopted by the municipality. So the next part of discussion that I'd like to have with council is council amendments. So after that budget is proposed, council can choose to pass a resolution to amend the budget within 30 days of receipt. So when I say 30 days of receipt, that is the day that we actually pre-publish to council and council gets that budget in their hands. Council members will submit their amendments to the clerk and the mayor in writing with any proposed amendments to the budget. These amendments are presented to council and the public at a scheduled meeting by resolution. This resolution is passed by a simple majority vote, which includes the mayor. So in that section on my report, there is wording in there that says that council can reduce the timeline, and that is correct. Council is able to reduce that 30-day timeline. However, it's just by majority vote. If that was a typo, it's not by 2/3 vote. Okay, so my apologies. Am I good to continue? It's up to council.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering then, where you want any amendments, you want us to send those to you in writing before the meeting. So we're gonna have a budget meeting next week, I think, aren't we?
Actually, I think we're gonna have to reschedule that one, but
okay, assuming it's still next week.
okay.
So we'll just make a budget. It's gonna be next Thursday and you're
Okay.
gonna give me my binder tomorrow.
Okay,
My 30 days starts.
correct.
If at the meeting next Thursday, we're going along discussing this and we want to propose an amendment, we can't do it there. We have to wait, give it to you in writing and it comes at the next meeting then?
No, and I want to be clear with council, you're permitted to make any amendment within the 30 days. So even when we schedule that next meeting at the 30-day mark and we come to the table and there's amendments, you can even add in another amendment if you so choose to. I'm just trying to be as transparent to the public as possible. And this is the only way that I saw would fit that bill. But again, if you're at the table and as you're having a debate and a discussion, if something else springs to mind and you want to add that amendment, we add the amendment, but it has to be in the form of a resolution. Yeah. Okay. Was there any other questions about the amendment? Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next, there is a mayor veto period, which is 10 days. So you wait out that 30 days for the amendments, and then the mayor has 10 days following the 30-day amendment period. And this doesn't mean that when he or she decides to veto that it's like all of it. They can choose one or more. So you know, they may choose not to veto any. If the mayor does not veto any of council amendments, the proposed budget as amended by council is deemed to be adopted by the municipality. So, and just for the public and council's knowledge, whenever the mayor presents a veto or that information, they have to include reasoning for that veto. So it's not just I'm vetoing this. There has to be a reason why it's being vetoed, and it has to be in writing, and it has to be presented to the clerk and distributed to council. It's no different than a decision or a directive. We still follow the same processes, and it gets emailed to council, and then we put it on the website. Okay. Now the mayor does have the opportunity as well to shorten that veto period. But again, it would be through the regular process, email to council, email to the clerk, and then we put it on the website. Okay, does council have any questions about the veto period? The next item for discussion is the override period, which is a maximum of 15 days. So this is council's override period. So following the mayor's veto, council may override the veto within 15 days. So council members will submit to the clerk and the mayor in writing any proposed overrides to the mayor's veto. This information is then presented to council and approved through resolution within 15 days. Now, the override does require a 2/3 vote. So if we have 7 members in attendance, in order to carry that vote, you would need 5 members voting in favor. The mayor can also vote on this item. Do you mind if I just finish this last little part? Okay. Okay, so just so council and the public understand, so if the override is carried and the budget is deemed to be passed, it's passed with the proposed amendments. If the override is defeated or council override period elapses, then the mayor's veto stands and the budget is deemed to be adopted by the municipality as it was presented. So happy to take any questions.
Go ahead.
So talk about inefficient. This is craziness. But I just tried to figure out, okay, so if council wants to amend it, that's fine, and then the mayor can veto that. And then there's this 15-day override. So somewhere in there, then you have to call a special meeting, is that?
That's correct.
Okay, that's where I was going, to find out, like, this is just.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so I think moving forward, I've had many discussions with the CAO and how to best collaborate the information. And I think what you'll find is as we start going through the process, we're going to be updating our website and being as transparent as possible to our public as well as council and staff. Just to sort of get those dates out, get them scheduled. The public and council are gonna know those dates and timelines will be clear as we email and I think it's new legislation. I mean, we're working through it. Many municipalities are doing it in various ways. When reviewing the legislation, I found this was the best possible way to coordinate it and still be transparent to the public and council. And then give staff that a timely manner to address any amendments or vetoes and so on and so forth. So again,
I think,
there's always room for change, but
yeah, I think it's important to say that you've been in meetings with many other clerks and lawyers and on
absolutely.
this.
Absolutely.
And I think the situation could be as an example where you know, the budget proposes 2% on something and somebody puts an amendment to say, I want 4%. Okay, and then somebody else could put another amendment of, well, if I can't have 4, then we want 3. So that then, if I were to agree to 3, then I would veto 1, but accept the other. So it's craziness, but that's the rules that have been put forward. Did you?
Yeah, just a quick comment into Councillor McKelvey's point. With this new legislation, we've sought legal advice. We've talked to all kinds of different municipalities. There's no way we're hitting next Thursday, just so that you're aware. So we will have to reschedule. We will finalize the dates next week and get that out to council. But because it's new legislation and trying to understand the 55 days when it starts and when you have to call meetings, like we will have to call a series of different meetings throughout this process. It's just been a real learning for all of us. And so one of the reasons we brought this forward was just to provide more clarity than the legislation itself spells out. So.
And I think it's important also that, for instance, Kawartha Lakes was able to do this a couple of weeks ago. But for us, if we look at our OPP number, which we still don't have yet, that number is a big impact on our budget. Whereas for somebody the size of Kawartha Lakes, they could make an estimate, and if it's not exact, that can be absorbed in their budget easily. So for us, having to get the numbers is more important. Councillor Saini?
Yeah, I guess I just do have to say I don't like the Strong Mayors Act and how this is put on our financial. I do greatly appreciate how much work has gone into this by our staff and learning from other municipalities and what they're doing. Some municipalities are going the same way of processing budgets as they have in the past that have the Strong Mayors Act, but they're still processing things the same way. I'm concerned because I think this thing about, for example, as an example, the 2/3 vote to overturn any particular suggestions encourages that backroom organizing where we're not discussing here at council why and how. We're going to bring forward something, but I want to know if there's anybody else on council. So I'm going to make some backroom calls to see who else supports it. So I don't think it leads to the transparency in the process that I would like to see. So that's just one reason why I don't like this. And I still stand strongly that our Strong Mayors Act, which came out of Chicago, is just not the kind of thing we want to adopt in Canada. Thank you.
Councillor McKelvey?
So this whole procedure is an administrative nightmare, and thanks to staff for your efforts, because this is ridiculous. One thing I would like to get out right now is the budget detail. How detailed are we going to get? That's a thing for me, so I might as well just throw it out right now.
Well, the instructions I've given, it's going to be fairly high level.
So you probably don't even need me to say this, but I have a great offense against that decision.
You have a great.
I think that's a terrible decision for the rest of council. So I just want that on record. The other thing I'd like to know is that we passed a resolution May 29th, 2025, opposing the Strong Mayors powers. I realize the province gave them to us whether we wanted them or not. That resolution wasn't circulated to the other municipalities. I'm just wondering why not, and I do need to know whether it went to the ministry and to the premier, and did they ever respond?
I'll have to look into that off the top of my head. I'll have to check with staff and just see.
Okay.
Okay.
So I am concerned that it didn't circulate to the other municipalities the way the resolution was worded. So is there any? It was to be and all Ontario municipal.
Okay, so I'll have to check with staff and then report back.
Okay, if you could,
Okay.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a resolution.
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receives report 2540 admin, mayor's budget process overview for information.
All those in favor? That is carried.
Okay, so lunch is on.
It's here.
Oh, it's here.
Okay, so we will break until 12:50 for lunch. And we come back to session. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Madam Clerk, please proceed with the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney. Be it resolved that that council proceed into closed session at 12:50 PM for the purpose of discussing one item pursuant to section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, potential litigation.
All those in favor? That is carried. All right, we will now move to closed. We're good. All right. We resume open session. Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Ingram. Be it resolved that closed session adjourned at 1:09 PM and open session resumed.
All those in favor? That is carried. Report from closed session.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Counselor McKelvey. Be it resolved that the direction given in closed session be approved.
All those in favor? That is carried. Bylaws.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Counselor Sisson. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received, read a first time, considered, read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed. Bylaw 25-108 to execute an agreement with Call to Recycle. Bylaw 25-109 zoning bylaw amendment PLZBA 2025083. Bylaw 25-110 assumption of a municipal road, Silverwood Road. Bylaw 25-111 SRA PLSRA 2024072. Bylaw 25-112 PLSRA 2024076. Bylaw 25-13 to appoint an acting deputy fire chief. Bylaw 25-115 to execute a transfer payment agreement.
All those in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that bylaw 25-116 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its special meeting of November 13th, during its regular meeting of November 13th, 2025, be received, read a first time, considered, read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All those in favor? That is carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Ingram. Be it resolved that the November 13th, 2025 regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 1:11 PM.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everybody. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 27th. And remember, tree lighting at 6 o'clock on Friday and Santa Claus parade at 11 o'clock on Saturday. Bye for now.